Welcome to the Leader Impact Podcast. We are a community of leaders with a network in over 350 cities around the world dedicated to optimizing our personal, professional, and spiritual lives to have impact. This show is where we have a chance to listen and engage with leaders who are living this out. We love talking with leaders, so if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions to make the show even better, please let us know. Best way to stay connected in Canada is through our newsletter at leaderimpact.ca or on social media at LeaderImpact. And if you're listening from outside of Canada, check out our website at leaderimpact.com. I'm your host, Lisa Peters, and our guest today is Ryan Walter. Ryan played and coached more than 1,100 games over 17 seasons in the NHL. His many achievements include being drafted number 2 in the NHL draft, becoming the youngest NHL captain, and winning a Stanley Cup with the Montreal Canadiens. He is a BC Hockey Hall of Fame inductee and an NHL Man of the Year. Ryan has been the founding partner in 2 startup companies. He is a TV hockey analyst, hockey expert, and actor, board and electronic game creator, and the president of a professional hockey team. Ryan has a master's degree in leadership business. He is the recipient of the TEC Canada 2015 Speaker of the Year Award. And he is the author of 5 books, including his newest book, Hungry, Fueling Your Best Game. Join us now for a conversation with Ryan as we chat about how we can stay hungry in uncertain times. As well, he will also share the impact of his relationship with God has had on his life and success. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Great to be here.
It is so nice to finally, we've had some connection issues, but it's glad to be here. But I want, first off, number one, I am the coolest hockey mom in my community because your name's like gold. So it's like, wow. And number 2, when the whole Montreal Canadiens, my neighbor at the lake was Doug Wickenheiser.
Oh, that's cool.
Isn't it small? Yeah.
Yeah, I played with Doug, actually, when I was first traded to Montreal. Doug was our centerman, and I played between Doug and the other wingers. Pretty impressive. It was Guy Lafleur. So that's a pretty fun line.
Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. And I was looking back because you actually came to my city with Leader Impact as a speaker in 2014. And I can't find the picture of us, but I remember putting on the ring.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a highlight.
Thank you. Well, it's fun to pass that Stanley Cup ring around. I'm not a ring guy. I don't really wear it much, but whenever I speak, I just hand it out.
Yeah. Well, I think there were a lot of men there, and I think they love it. So thank you for doing that. So I want to thank you for sharing your book in advance with me, Hungry, Fueling Your Best Game. My thing, though, I get caught up in it, right? I get caught up in doing the work. It's like, no, I'm supposed to interview Ryan. So we're going to kick off. But first, people love hearing a little bit more about you. So tell us a little bit more about yourself and your rise to being a Hockey Hall of Famer.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think I always say to people, I'm a kid from Burnaby, British Columbia. Like, I really shouldn't have played in the NHL. Anybody in Vancouver or Burnaby knows that there's no outdoor ice, right? It just rains in Burnaby, British Columbia. So there wasn't if I was a kid on the prairies and I lived on the ice, it would make a lot more sense. So I just loved the game of hockey. I moved forward. I played junior hockey at 15 years old in Langley and then up to the Western Hockey League in Kamloops, and was drafted out of Seattle to the Washington Capitals. So loved my time in Wash. Was traded to the Montreal Canadiens, where I spent 9 seasons. And, Jenny and I had 4 of our 5 kids there. And we got to 2 cup finals, losing to Calgary in 89 and winning in 1986. So that was pretty cool. Coming out of the NHL, I ended up being in Vancouver for a bit at the end of my career, and then did some broadcasting, but have really been fixated, and I would say, Lisa, curious about leadership. And that's really, driven my life, certainly in that context. And I know you and I are going to talk about it. I had a real spiritual, sort of a faith awakening. And that was something that really drove a lot of my leadership curiosity also.
All right. Well, we'll get to that faith awakening. But I laugh at you saying there were no outdoor rinks in Burnaby. It was always raining because we have, in Saskatchewan, just down the highway, Mark McMorris, right? Snowboarder who we
Yeah.
have no mountains. And here he is,
Right.
number one in the world, or top in the world. So yeah. But our kids are always on the ice all winter, all summer, all, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will get into your book a little bit. This is your fifth book, and it's called Hungry: Fueling Your Best Game. And I think maybe a lot of people have lost their passion, or maybe they're away in the last 2 years. And I don't know if it's they're trying to find their way back, they're trying to find their way out, they've left, but we continue to see a high amount of leaders exiting. And maybe they just want a different way of life. Maybe they've lost their hunger. I don't know. So I'm excited to hear about hunger, staying hungry during these times. But my first question is, why the name Hungry?
Yeah. That's love the question. I don't know. I finally had to write about it. Like the differentiation between sort of, having skill, and skill is important. You cannot play at the highest level of hockey or anywhere in the world without skill. But what I found is that the differentiation wasn't skill, right? It was players that were hungry. The player that, a simple example that you watch every day with your kids, the puck goes in the corner and two players go in to get it, and who comes out with the puck, right? It's the person that's hungry. You find a way to do those things. So I finally had to write about it. And Jenny and I sort of wanted to build a little bit of a model around the elements of hungry. And I want to put on the table, I don't think we've got this thing surrounded. I think there's much more when you talk about the hungry spirit. You talk about staying hungry, staying focused, having a vision, right? Like all of those pieces are powerful. But I think it's not just one. I don't think I can point to one thing and say, okay, this person is hungry because they had great vision, or this person is hungry, because they stayed focused. So it's a powerful thought. I love the word, and it's a word I want to live. I think I have been hungry. I think I am hungry, and I want to stay hungry because I think it brings out the best in our life.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I read your book, your language is different than other leadership books I've read, and it was refreshing just to maybe and I took a different take on it. I read it differently, and yeah, to stay hungry. I'm a basketball player. I've been hungry. I've been in the corner and or broken a nose or whatever.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I get it. So how do we lose our hunger before we get into how to stay hungry in uncertain times? But how do we lose it? What happens?
It's interesting. We're doing a lot of work right now with corporate America and church America around language. And, just to borrow from our Lord, language counts.
Yeah.
And words count. And the power of word. In John chapter 1, if you want to go there, I think that the concept of language has a big impact on some people's hungry spirit. And so at times, I think we receive criticism from people, and maybe long term, and you can see sort of a hungry spirit sort of drain out of people. But I also think it's more important, and this is maybe my number one, is the language that we tell ourselves. And I think that's what makes people unhungry, right? Like I could never do that. And, I really don't have purpose. And this COVID thing is too long. And I can't believe there's a war in Ukraine. Like there's the words that we say to ourselves has such impact. And, I had to put in Philippians 4:8, right, into the book, because when Paul says, use these words, look for what's beautiful and honoring and awesome and all these key words. And at the end, he says, think on these things. So I think that the words that we say to ourselves and the words that we say to the people, our community and our teams and our families, have huge impact on Hungry.
Wow. So when you say that, it reminds me, I just started the book As a Man Thinketh by
Yes.
James Allen, written in 1903. It's mind-blowing. And it's exactly,
Yeah.
it's, the words I'm telling myself are my thoughts, and those
Yeah.
thoughts become my consequences. Amazing. Yeah. So.
Well, good. And I just jump in because James Allen is one of my favorite people in life. And, I know he's way before me. I never met him, but I've read all his stuff. And he was just way ahead of his time.
Yeah. Oh, then I can't wait to finish the book. And it's a short book. I should be done soon. But all right. Well, we're going to get into how to stay hungry in uncertain times. I'm excited to hear, man, because we've been in 2.5 years of uncertainty.
Yeah.
So
we really have. I think one of the things we're talking to leaders about across North America during these times is to and this sounds, your mom and dad have probably told you this, my mom and dad have told me this. I probably didn't listen to them, but it sounds so fundamental and so foundational. But I think that's where we have to start. We have to first go to the foundation, of what makes us hungry. And I think the thing that we love about Hungry is there's no cookie cutter. Right? It's like, okay, here's the 3 things to do and everybody will be hungry. We're all so different. And so getting into personal values is a really important thing. I know there's cultural values. I know there's community values, probably a little bit of world values, but to really understand personal values is powerful. We have a little assessment that we buy, and it kicks out our top 7 values. And it won't surprise you, probably, Lisa, that my top value, it probably should be aggressive or right. Like, I'm a hockey player. my top value of the top 7 that it kicked out was much more on the line of creativity.
wow.
So, for example, if I want to stay on the hungry edge of my life, I need to know that I'm not a 9 to 5 guy, right? I'm probably working at 7 o'clock at night, but I need a creative edge. I need a break, right? I need to read 40 books. I'm a very different person than maybe somebody that has way more detail. And God builds us so differently that we want to honor each other's opportunity to stay hungry and to be hungry. So that would be my first foundational piece. The second is just, finding truth. And we're going to get into spiritual here in a minute, but I got to tell you, in today's world, I think that we get disappointed because we're not sure what truth is, right? This cable station says this, and that news station says that, and it's almost like they're lying to each other. Like, somewhere, where is the truth in what we're taking in? I think people get so disappointed. The average person in North America right now is so fed up with stuff that's out there from maybe 1 or 2% of our population, and we're trying to figure out what is truth. Here's what's really helped me, and this is you too, is that the scriptures, the Bible, has so much helped me to get a foundation of truth so that I can be hungry towards that truth. And that's been powerful for me because that gives me my vision, that gives me my direction, and in essence gives me the purpose that I need to stay hungry.
I'm going to go back to, you talked about values, and I've done too many, and I'm sure everyone listening has done those. Here's 50 values, pick yours. And
Yeah.
that's really great. But you talked about it kicked out your values.
Yes.
So it must have asked you, this program you did, it asked you questions.
Yes.
Can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, for sure. Like one thing we love about and I don't have it in my brain exactly what the name of that assessment was, but I can get it for everybody. But what it did is it asked you a series of questions, and then it kept refining down. Instead of having to look at all 50, right? It refined the values down into our top seven. That was a powerful revelation for me. What I'm coming to understand as a leadership development coach and trainer, most people don't know their top seven values.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We go, oh yeah, well, integrity, right? Like that, and then we go, okay, but dad's got integrity, mom's got integrity. What is integrity?
Yeah.
And so I think to be able to really understand the way that God made us and the values that we hold important. My wife Jen had a brilliant thought. She said, Ryan, I'm starting to figure it out. When I'm not quite sure of what decision to make, I go back to my values.
Mm.
That's a cool thought in a very uncertain world.
Yeah. An interview prior, they talked about filters. Take it through their faith filters, or she called it something else. I can't remember, but yeah, because I think too many times, and as you said, integrity. I'm like, yeah, that's mine, but
Yes.
I have not done an assessment. I just picked them because I believed. So I love listening that there's a different assessment out there.
Yes.
All right. So continue on with how I'm going to stay hungry in these uncertain times. I mean, I need purpose. I need values.
Yep. And as we talk about in the book, I mean, vision is such an important piece, isn't it? People that sit on a couch don't need to be hungry. Like if we're not going anywhere, it's good enough. Today's good enough. And I think that that's something that's really hit me, through professional sport, through business, but also through family and through relationships. Because, I think family and relationships are way harder than winning Stanley Cups
Yeah.
and all the rest. And so what's the vision for the relationship? I often say to people, we have a little mindset model that we use, and we like to talk about future positive thinking. And I often say to people, write down your future positives. Like, what do you want in this relationship? And what kind of, friendship do you want with your kids? And what holidays do you want to take with your spouse? And like, just keep writing. Because when we start to journal, when we put our thoughts on paper around what we want or the vision that we have for life in multiple areas, you get pretty excited about it, and then it's easy to be hungry. But if I'm just sort of sitting and going, well, guess I'll die one day, right? Like it's not, and I think that that's one of the things that the world seems to lately have sort of impacted many people around. Oh, this COVID thing has sucked the energy out of me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's an option, but what do you want? Get your eye on that next step, right? And how can you move through it? So vision is a powerful part of being hungry. We want to move towards.
Yeah. I felt when COVID hit, I did step back, and I don't think I laid on my couch but I just stepped back, and I felt I needed a break. And I think a lot of people maybe just welcomed it, but we need to get hungry again. Like, we need to go, what's the vision for the future? We need to get back on the horse. Gee.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because a lot of our clients, we did, training, leadership development training over Zoom for 2 years.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden in the last month, Jen and I, we weren't even home in March because clients want to get have in-person training. And you watch people get together, some companies for the first time in 2 years. And I keep saying to the group, you don't even need me, like just shake hands and, bump elbows and enjoy each other, big smiles on faces. So I think you're right. I think it's, we need connection, and that would be from a relational point of view, something that helps us stay hungry too.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, continue on. I mean, I've read your book, and I have so many. There's so many good things about just moving forward and moving out of this. So, what else you got, Ryan?
Well, even since the book, I've been thinking a lot, and our next book will I want to stay in the book hungry, but just to add to it, our next book's going to be called Breakout, and it's really about the 6 mindsets that run our mind, that run our business, that run our relationships, that run everything. The reason I bring up mindset is, and we talk about it a little bit in Hungry, is that a guy by the name of Aristotle. So there's an old guy. He said thoughts are acts. Thoughts. I'm sorry. Thoughts cause action.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, it's so simple and it's so true, right? That the idea that our thinking is so powerful, and especially in these days. So we're really challenging people, in order to stay hungry, is to exchange a couple of words. And this is simple stuff. Be more intentional with our thinking and less reactional with our thinking. But the only way we can do that is to have language around what we're thinking, and that's what our model delivers. Mm-hmm. It gives 6 new pieces of language so we can sort of separate our thinking. I'll give you an example. I mean, future positive thinking, that makes sense, right? That's the vision. That's where we're going to create, our solutions. Those are the goals of our life. So that's an easy one. But past negative thinking, the opposite, is a deep, dark hole. And so to recognize, and I think one of the key words to leadership in 2022 is this idea of awareness. If we as leaders are not aware of what we're thinking, or how much time we spend in a certain area of our thinking, then we'll have no success in actually shifting our mindset. And so that has been another really a key component to staying hungry, is to focus in on, what are the things that I think about? And then there's a great scientist that has suggested that 95% of the thoughts we had yesterday we're going to have today. Right? Like we don't change a lot. So here's the big question. If that is true, who's in charge of the inputs? Mm-hmm. Right? And so how can we as leaders stay intentional around the inputs that are creating the outputs on an automatic basis? And that's a powerful way to stay hungry, is to be intentional.
Yeah. Intentional keeps popping up for me. And I mean, in every interview and every conversation, intentional just keeps, I'm like, what are you trying to say?
That's cool. Yeah. And I'll give you, Lisa, our, like from a leadership perspective, people always say, okay, how do you define leadership? People love to have those conversations, and I like them. Jenny and I have had to think about it we've been training corporate America for 25 years. And for me, John Maxwell says that leadership is influence, and he's right. If you can only have one word, he's right. If you'll give me 2 words, here's what I think leadership is in 2022: intentional influence. We are so busy and so distracted. Pick up one of these, right? like we have so many other options as leaders now. Is that if we're going to focus on the upside of people and the best in others, we have to be intentional, because it's easy to be distracted.
Yeah. It is easy and as you picked up your phone, and I think, and some people have 2 phones. We got how many computers and iPads, and we have everything to keep us distracted. That's interesting. So we'll move on. But I just want to say, I loved your book. I love the words you used. you use words I love, like rebounding and deflecting, and it was really good. Uh, you know, and I think the best part was just in your book, you allow us to stop and reflect and write your own answers. And so, what my suggestion to anyone listening is, share it with someone. Don't do this book alone. Do this book with someone who knows you, because
Cool.
you whatever you think, someone else can see it on the outside, see you a different way. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And I just jump in when you said deflecting. Just share a quick little hockey story. I mean, obviously, the lingo, the language comes from sport, and deflection's such a cool idea because we deflect a puck and it goes in the net or something like that. When we're on the game, when we're on the ice, but what Jen and I really listen in now, like we're there's no judgment. I'm not judging anybody, but my ear picks stuff up, right? And so in the deflection opportunity, and this is what we talked about in Hungary, do we deflect credit towards ourselves, or do we deflect when we receive glory or credit or whatever towards others and our team? And I keep thinking there's a powerful verse in Matthew 6:1, and this is the worst verse for an NHL player, because it says, in essence, it says this: if you receive applause from men or men and women, then you will not receive applause from God. Think about why do pro athletes play, right? To score goals. So God's not saying that, but basically what I'm hearing him say is we want to give him the glory, and we want to deflect our lives, right, to something much more meaningful. And what I found is the more we give away, the hungrier we stay.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, I'm glad you came back to collect what deflecting was, and that's a great story. Um, and I love how you just pull stuff out of the Bible. That's not a strength of mine, and I love people that just, and then So I love that you can do that. I wish I did more of that. Which this kind of ties into just slipping right into the spiritual side. And I know in our pre-meeting of this podcast, you mentioned that when you were a hockey player, the conversation was all about you. And you just said, the applause, right? Like the conversation's about Ryan Walter and the ring, whatever. And for you now, it's not that way for you anymore. And can you give us a little insight into your spiritual journey, and what has been the impact your relationship with God has been on your life and your success?
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting just to start. That's so true. I mean, I think that we are people who have ego. We have, and ego can be good and bad. We have sort of that self. Some people call it confidence, or some people call it self-image. So God built us that way. I mean, in the beginning, and people can go to Genesis and see that God, we were built to walk with him, and that was supposed to be the way it is. And then we were tempted, and we as a humanity fell, and we sort of walked away from God. And so if we're going to walk away from God, then we're not going to give him any credit. And I think for a big chunk of my life, I didn't get that. I thought that if basically that Christianity was, if you're a good person, God will figure it out, right? When the plane crashes and you die, God will say, "Well, Ryan, you only had so many penalties. You had a few assists, and goodness, you even got a goal or two. So come on in." And wow, that bubble was burst in the sort of early '80s, when a good friend of mine, Jean Pronovo, we came off, he was on our team, and we came off a bit of a tough plane ride. It felt like the plane might go down. It didn't. And I came off the plane. It's funny how God gets our attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
I came off the plane going, okay, do goals and assists do they work? Like, how can I know? Like, what? I can't know if I'm good enough. And I asked Jean Pronovo, and he had a big smile on his face, and he just threw me a New Testament. And he said, I'm not going to tell you, kid. Go read for yourself. What
Wow.
a great challenge. So I started to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Matthew, Mark, Luke. I'd never read the Bible before. And I came to a place where I had to make a decision on Jesus. That's the one thing I think, Lisa, you and I would recommend to everybody listening, everybody watching, is go do it yourself. Like, it's the scriptures are not, it's not just a book. It is powerful. These are the words of God and the stories of God and the journey of Jesus as God. So when I finally got to the place where Jesus said, basically, this is not put well, but my way or the highway, right? Jesus doesn't include a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
He just sort of says, no, sort of hate to tell you this, Ryan, but I actually came and gave up my life so that you could have life. I died on a cross so that you, when you receive me, and that's what I did. I asked Jesus to be my Savior. I said, sorry, Lord, I have messed up so bad. Come in, forgive my sin, come into my life, take over my life, be my only way to the Creator. And when I do that, Jesus said, it's like his blood covers me. And when God looks down at Ryan Walter, he sees Jesus. That's the only way that I have a chance to get close to a perfect God. So that was such a powerful thought and message for me. And even when I knew that, ego, right? It took a little while to bend my knee and say, okay, God, I get it. You take
Yeah.
over,
Yeah.
right? I'm done. And it was really fun, Lisa. You'll love this story. That afternoon, we were actually in Edmonton. We're going to play the Oilers that night. So I asked Jesus to be my savior in the afternoon before my pregame sleep. And then got up and played the game. And in the game, Kerry Fraser was the referee. He's my friend now. Kerry Fraser's become a Christian, and he was refereeing, and he messed up on a call. My coach Brian Murray sent me over. He said, "Give him a piece of your mind, like that Fraser is awful." I went right over to Kerry Fraser. He knew it was coming. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, could you give me your interpretation of that call?" He was ready for the F bombs. And
Yeah.
what's crazy is I haven't really sworn since.
Wow. I mean,
So
that was
Jesus,
terrible.
yeah, like it's the one thing he took from me. It's almost a way in the game of hockey to prove that he's real.
Yeah. You know, uh, totally off. Doug Wickenheiser had a very similar story where he was to go to the ref and blast him, and they were friends. And Doug skated over to the ref and goes like, "What are we doing tonight? Are we going for beers or steak?" And he's yelling at the ref, so it looks
I
like
love it.
But I don't know why I have that story, but when you told, yeah, I find it funny how and not funny at all because we know God hints and then he throws you a plane that almost goes down, or
Yeah,
like I call it, he throws me a brick because I
yeah.
am not listening. And I think, for if you can sort of answer, has it always been, prior to you, before the Oilers game, accepting God, was there ever those little nudges? And did you ever
Mm,
sort of feel like something's inside, like there's a little twinge, there's a little
yeah,
gut feeling, and you put it aside, right? Until
yeah.
he, yeah.
Totally, totally. For me, in a maybe a positive way, was my mom and dad didn't necessarily take us to church every Sunday. We tend to be typical Canadian family where hockey took over Sunday morning, which is sort of sad, right? But was on every July. It was the only months we had off in the hockey calendar. We went fishing, and we went up and we went up into the middle of British Columbia, and we would camp together as a family and fish trout, and we just loved that. And in a way, Lisa, I think that's where God got my attention, right? Looking at the perfection. Once you move out of cities and you start getting into creation, like I always knew that there was a God, that there was a creator. It wasn't just, a big bang and hey, there's no reason and we shouldn't be here. And the other thing that's really hit me, and I had to think about this a little bit, I didn't understand where God fit into it. But like, why do we have laws, and what is a moral code, and like, why is that right and that wrong, and why shouldn't we murder? And like, if we're just sort of happened here, if we have no creator, then we have no need for law, right? We don't need that. Where did that come from? And it comes from the heart of God, doesn't it? And I think that's the other side that I saw, was that there's a creator, and that this is organized. As flawed as Ukraine and Russia looks right now, that's happened thousands of times in the last 2,000 years, right? And the question people always ask me is, why would God allow that to happen? And yet we don't take the time to look at the rest of the organization of this world, and that it's God is in it because we have fallen. It's not him. He doesn't want war. He wants love. But we have fallen, and he is powerful even when we fall.
Mm. Wow. I was my next question I was just about honoring your faith in uncertain times, and you sort of answered that, because people are asking in these uncertain times, or in war, or whatever's happening in their life, where is God? And you've answered that.
Well, and here's maybe even a more of a clear answer. I had a very good friend from Montreal, and he became a Christian back when Jenny and I were in Montreal. We received Jesus, but he really hasn't grown in his faith, and I feel bad about that, because that's probably on me. That I could have discipled him maybe a little better, but anyway, he's come back. He sort of turned back to his faith, and we have great conversations. And he was really, really upset at where is God in Ukraine? And come on, like, how could he allow COVID? And I said, well, my friend, let's just get to the essence of all of this. If Putin was to receive Jesus right now, he would be in heaven when he dies. And of course, I'm really ratcheting up his anger now because he's upset at this guy. And I said, when you die, what's the one question that God's going to ask? Is it how good you are, or how good a lawyer you are, or how did you treat your kids? Or all of those things are important, but what one question will Jesus ask? And we know that it's the same for you as it is for Putin, as it is for Ryan. The question is, what did we do with Jesus? That's it. Unfortunately, that's our question, because Jesus came to die for humanity. He's already paid the price. So did we reject that gift, or did we receive that gift? And that's what our the rest of our lives will be determined by. So I think sometimes and I only say this to try to create clarity in a very unclear world right now, because we see a lot of stuff out there. But what if we were to die of COVID today? What would God's going to ask us one question. What's our response? And I think that's an important thought. And that really hit me when I came off the plane and sort of thought, gee, what if that plane goes down?
Wow. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing. I know that you have been involved in LeaderImpact. I saw you speak in 2014, and it was so good. And being part of LeaderImpact has changed my life. Tell us a little bit about your involvement. Are you still speaking? Involved in anything?
I love LeaderImpact. Like,
Yeah.
I think, anytime a leader gets a chance to share some ideas around leadership and then, share the foundation of our life, which is Jesus. And so I love that. One of the things that Leader Impacts really spurred me along to do, and you guys don't know you did this, but let me fess up, is I now have been studying the four Gospels, and I've been studying Jesus and the qualities and the differentiations of his leadership. So, for example, I'm just close. I've gone through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and I'm just into John right now, where I have actually pulled out of the Gospels with my computer every question that Jesus asked. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look at the questions that Jesus asked the Pharisees, the religious people of the time, the questions that Jesus asked the government, the questions that Jesus asked people that were sick or needed healing. And it is fascinating because I think more than ever in our training, we are asking and training leaders to ask. And that the concept of asking connects to this thing called metacognition, which is thinking about thinking. And when you think when the New Testament really, and the Old Testament, but when the Bible really hits us, what is God doing? He's getting us to think about our thinking. And to look at our thinking so that we, it can change all parts of our lives. So thank you for, Leader Impact for just guiding me in that area, because that sort of came out of one of my times when I was speaking, that I wanted to understand more of how Jesus led.
So is this coming out in your next book?
This might be the next book. But
Right.
yeah, that's down the road for sure.
Oh, so we have two last questions, and I ask this of all my guests. Leader Impact is dedicated to leaders having a lasting impact. Now, as you continue to move through your journey, and it's a wonderful journey, have you considered what you want your faith legacy to be when you leave this world?
Yeah, it's good. I have a bit of an evangelistic gift. And so I love when Leader Impact invites me to speak to groups of people that, are local and that, the church can invite to Leader Impact. I love that because it puts me in front of people that I would never meet in my lifetime. So I really love that concept. The other thing that's really hit Jenny and I is we have, for whatever reason, God seems to have brought couples to us, and so we've been doing a little bit like Paul and Eleanor Henderson. Like we've been doing some couples ministry in these days, and it's more around coaching performance, but it's from a Christian perspective, right? So many young couples have prospering businesses, but feel like they're on the edge of losing their relationship. And so, it seems like God seems to be bringing that to us a little bit. And then finally, I have a really strong desire to just come alongside a bunch of guys and just sort of go, okay, what does the Bible say about this? And what does it say about that? And just open up coaching performance conversations around the scriptures. And we're starting to do that. And I'm feeling that God keeps bringing me, my friend Pascal back from Montreal, and, my other friend Mark from Victoria. And one of the things, Lisa, that I think has opened up this is this crazy thing we're doing right now, like Zoom and Teams and online coaching is easy, and we're in front of each other and we can actually see body language, and it's not always on the phone. So I think it's opening up, this crazy COVID thing is opening up doors. And so those would be legacy pieces that we're sort of working on.
Good. That's a good answer. And my final question for you, Ryan, is what brings you joy?
Well, I won't surprise you. I think worship, um, I'm not very good at this. I'm just an old hockey player, and I don't sing very well. And I'm really thankful that I don't think God cares, right? He knows my heart. But I think that worship, Jen and I often say that when we're sharing Christ or when we're worshiping Jesus, that is, it feels like such a pure joy. But the other thing as we age, I'm 64 here in April, family, right? Like we have five going on six grandkids, and Jen and I are still, we have a full schedule of work. Like I don't see us slowing down. I was just in Houston and in Toronto, and Vancouver. We're heading to Winnipeg and Montreal, and so we keep going. But I think what drives us is we get great times also with our kids, and they're on their own, right? And they're all sort of in their 30s, and we have almost, a young one's coming, so almost six grandkids. And so I think family, I think worship would be number one. I think sharing Christ, brings huge joy, and then family is right there.
Yeah. Which reminded me of when you talked about, couples and coming together and great in business, but the relationship. I think of Power to Change, and under our umbrella is family life.
Yes.
And I've been part of that a little bit, and we love it. Just,
Yeah.
Everyone that you meet there. So
Neil and Cheryl do a great job there.
yeah. So, and they do I think we're starting to open up with all across Canada. They come in and they'll do weekend retreats, and
Yes.
they're awesome. Like, if anyone hasn't gone, you think I'm scared, like, maybe your husband and you're not talking. Well, they don't allow you, like, they'll give you 1 minute to talk. So it's not
Yes.
uncomfortable. It's really good. So, but thank you, Ryan, for just joining us and talking about, how do we stay hungry in uncertain times? I have loved this last 45 minutes. My cheeks always hurt from smiling. I just appreciate you sharing with us.
My pleasure. Thank
Now,
you.
if anyone wants to sort of engage with you, how can they, look you up and get whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, we're pretty transparent and wide open. RyanWalter.com has a way to just sort of send us a note and have a look around there. But it's Ryan at RyanWalter.com. I mean, that's our email, and that's probably an easy way to do it. I think my cell phone is pretty much online also, but so it doesn't really matter anymore. But we love connecting with people, and it might not be that you need us to come and speak to your group. Somebody might just have a question about hockey, or they want a hockey card, signed. We're wide open to adding value to people's lives.
Oh, you're awesome. I would love to meet Jen. I think when you came to Regina, she couldn't come.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Next time we'll do it again. We'll both speak.
All right. Well, that was on my list of talk to Ryan about coming back to our city. So thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
All right. Well, if you're part of Leader Impact, you can always discuss or share this podcast with your group. And if you're not yet in a Leader Impact group, we would love to have you. Check out groups available in Canada at leaderimpact.ca, or if you're listening from anywhere else in the world, check out leaderimpact.com, or get in touch with us by email at info@leaderimpact.ca, and we will connect you. And if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment, give us a rating or a review. This will help other global leaders and maybe even some hockey players find our podcast. So thank you for engaging with us, and remember, impact starts with you.